Identify and book the world's best speakers for your next event. MENA Speakers is the leading speakers and MC bureau in the Middle East. We bring global talent to the region and have established the region as a key global hub for speakers. Inspire and motivate your audience. Find exactly what you are looking for by working closely with us to assist you in understanding the cost-benefit analysis tied to selecting a speaker for any event. Ensure that your audience is educated, engaged, and empowered. Connect with us for a quick response and tailored advice. Book your speakers now.
Get those managers developed throughout your organization, having them understand exactly what engagement is about, the role they play in the whole engagement scheme. It's not just the organization that comes back and our scores were very low. Well, that comes back down to every manager.
Welcome, everyone. If it's Friday, it is the CEO series. Our guest today is Saana Azzam, former founder of MENA Speakers, located here in the Middle East, specifically Dubai. She is an international award-winning economist, Forbes contributor, CEO of the Middle East leading speakers bureau, MENA Speakers. She is a graduate of the esteemed Stockholm School of Economics with a master's in economics. She earned a prestigious title of Female Economist of the Year in 2010, and she was named as one of the top 10 influential leaders of 2020 by Insight Success. Thank you for squeezing us into your busy schedule. So glad to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be part of the CEO series and to have a chat with you, Ron.
It's great. So just so we know up front, MENA Speakers represents me as well as other speakers here in the Middle East. So you've gone from international award-winning economist to the CEO of the leading speakers bureau. And not only that, but you are a top keynote speaker for yourself. How did that happen?
Right off the bat. Okay. Let's do that. That's super. Yes. So 2010, I won this award called Female Economist of the Year in Sweden. And I was just finishing my master's degree. And in conjunction with that, I got a lot of good coverage and invitations to speak at conferences. So, you're young and bold and you go, why not? I'll just speak. So I went on stage, my first speech ever. And it was one of these situations I totally underestimated what I did over there. I thought it would be easy. You just go and chat. What's the big deal? When I went up on stage, I blacked out. I was feeling nauseated. I was just like, what have I done? But luckily I had memorized my speech and rehearsed it enough that it was going. So when I finished that talk, I step off stage and then I get approached by another person who says, I liked what you did. Can I book you as a speaker? We don't have a big budget, it's a few couple thousand. Can we do that? And I went, okay. All right. Okay.
Not a hard decision, right?
Yes, that totally kicked off my speaking career. And then I had an agency representing me in Northern Europe and Sweden. But in parallel to that, I was still working for American Express. I went into like a banking career. And then I had my speaking career. So I was doing that side by side until at some point I decided that I wanted to move back to the Middle East or move to the Middle East. And then started working as a physical gold trader in Dubai.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So I don't talk about that a lot, but I did that for a while, which was incredible. Coming from Stockholm, pearl earrings, Economist, everyone's very favorite, to the gold souk in Dubai. So it was such a nice contrast, and I learned a lot. But what happened was that I would still get invited to speak, and I would still be invited to talk about the gold market, the macroeconomic outlook, things like
Okay.
that. I'm going, this is interesting. Okay, so the stage loves me. Let's work with this. And I love the stage. So I want to continue doing this. And I looked for an agency to represent me here. Quickly found out that there was literally no agency that deals with business speakers. And then I started talking to the international agencies that I worked with, kind of trying to find out, why aren't you setting up, like, why don't you have anybody here? And there was zero appetite to represent Arab speakers or speakers from this part of the world. And this is where I went, okay, well, I can actually do something really good for all these unheard voices and really unsung heroes who now have a chance to share their story on stage. And voila, that's where I moved into setting up the business of MENA Speakers, and that was 5-6 years ago.
Wow. So there's two key points there. The lesson you had when you got up and blanked out. And I read some research at one time that it said public speaking was the most feared and death was second.
Yeah.
So you were able to bounce back from that. And I know lots of people have tried to speak publicly, and they've not been successful at it, but they wanted to do it. How would someone who, so you had the affirmation that somebody came and said, we want you to speak, but what if that would not have happened?
Yeah.
How could someone that fails that first time out, but they know that this is what they really want to do?
Yeah.
How could we come back from that?
I love that. And I think, and I hear these conversations a lot. You know, I was good on stage once, or I was okay on stage once. Can you represent me now? So I spend a lot of my time actually having these type of conversations.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because if you would set up a new business and you're selling like a product, whatever it may be, you'd go into the space of product development, you'd go into the space of marketing and sales. But for some reason, when you happen to be the business, whether that's as a speaker, as a coach, as an expert, as a consultant, for some reason, there's this disconnect of the amount of effort you actually have to do. So I quite often find myself repeating myself saying, well, actually, if you want to be a basketball player, you would go and train, you'd shoot some hoops. If you want to be a ballet dancer, etc., you do the same. But as a public speaker, why aren't you getting trained in that? You know, go to the classes, upskill yourself, become a better product. So you have to look at yourself. If you want to be a speaker, you have to divide your role into two. One is you, the CEO of a business, and the other one is you as a product, which happens to be a speaker. And both of them have to do a great job.
So the other key point to that was that for someone having to realize that, but you realized when people were asking you and you were first introduced into this business, that there was an opportunity here and you jumped on it. And a lot of people would have kind of just, okay, and still moved on the other way. So, and this whole entrepreneur, so the title of our topic is From Economist to Entrepreneur. And you saw an opportunity and you jumped at that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure lots of people that's listening to the program, they have an idea. I always tell people there's 1,001 ideas. How do you move beyond the idea? So how did you move beyond this thinking that I know that there's something here and let me try it?
And I think this is where you have to, so it wasn't this magical, oh, now I have this opportunity, I'm going to run it. Like there is an element of me. At that point in time, I got offers from like Goldman Sachs, BCG, all these different very established corporate institutions and non-established from both. Because I was interviewing a lot and I was kind of testing out what I wanted to do in life. And this was one of these things where I felt, oh, I like this. It was as simple as that. Like, I like this. And I think I can become quite good at it. But the baseline was, I enjoy this. I want to try this again. The other offers, when I got the corporate offers, I went, oh, that's interesting, but this is not really calling me. I'm not enjoying it. And if I look at the organization of the people at the top, do I want to be like them? And sometimes my answer was no. And sometimes my answer was yes, but the job wasn't calling me. So you have to do things, both follow gut feeling and then logically assess.
Job was calling me versus going to do something on Sunday morning from our area that you says, I hate every day of this.
Yeah.
That was cool to be able to differentiate between those two. So if we think of, so you hear the topic today in organizations, they talk about purpose and having that, and having a thirst for being inside of something that you really, really want to do. It's just a passion to do it. That's kind of a hard leap for people. You know, I don't know whether it's because of COVID. Everybody talks a good game, and you talk to people, they say the things they want to do, but if you talk with them 6 months later, it's the same story over and over again. So my question always is to them, so when you go make a decision to do whatever you were going to do, did you have kind of a sounding board, or I always call it, who's your board of directors, who you're talking to, that can kind of inspire you to say, this is maybe should be something.
My board of directors has actually just surfaced quite recently, and it came in conjunction with becoming a mother and having, so it's very much, my daughter is on my board of directors, let's put it that way. A lot of the decisions I make from the lens of, you know, is this good for her? Would she should be proud in the future? It's that type of thing. My mother's on that board as well.
Okay.
A bit stricter there.
Yeah. I understand.
So that type of board, I wish I'd had that type of thinking earlier on. I was, you know, my younger self was just actually trying to maximize opportunity, you know, make ends meet, maximize opportunity. Yes, have fun on, but that wasn't what my value system was there. I just felt like I had so much to prove. So, you know, my drivers, and I can comfortably say to some degree, was money. My drivers today are much more sophisticated because I believe, you know, past that type of drive. So it's more about self-fulfillment, doing, you know, paying it forward to society and that type of thing. But it's had an evolution, and I'm pretty sure it will still have an evolution of finding your calling. I don't know what it'll be in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. I think from COVID has caused everybody to kind of step back, whether they agree to it or not. Everybody's kind of stepped back and said, do I want to do this for the next 5, even 3 years? Trying to understand what's next, because this COVID experiment, I call it an experiment. This COVID experiment has caused everyone to kind of step back for a second and try and, you know, rethink all these kinds of things. One of the things that's interesting in your background, you were a Palestine refugee. And starting from, I'm going to say -0 or -2, you know, starting from that spot to get where you are today. What kept you grounded? Because we run into roadblocks, we run into things that just kind of just confuses everything. Is there a North Star that you're working towards that I got to get to here, or what worked for you?
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate the question, and I think, and I've gone through a lot of these like coaching calls and courses and classes. Obviously, with what I do, I'm always exposed to a lot of different thought leaders, and I find your purpose and these really big questions a bit overwhelming sometimes, especially now with COVID, where we've had a crisis of values. It's literally just been a day-by-day play. Just, you know, what am I doing? Am I enjoying this? Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing good successfully by doing well to others? That's something I enjoy. But more than that, I'm not sure I can pinpoint too many different things in the long run. So that's my shortest, very vague answer. I try to find purpose in everything, whether I'm you know, helping somebody out with filling their coffee, which I'll comfortably do, to closing a really big deal with a head of state. That's fine. I think they're just as enjoyable and purposeful, because the business in itself is very profound. What we do is reaching so many hundreds of people at the same time that no matter what I do within the business, I know it has such a big effect. And we see that when we get the thank you notes. We see that when somebody says, I listened to Ron Thomas and he changed my life. I listened to this person and it altered my path. So I know that when I get that, that fuels me for a very long time. So then I don't mind.
So I'm doing cool. I'm doing good. Yeah, things are cool. Yeah, things are cool. Yeah, you know, when you started the business, so you realized this was an opportunity. I have something here. How did you grow it? I mean, the idea is great. And I hear a lot of people that want to be entrepreneurs and they don't really when I hear somebody say, I want to be in my own business, I said, you don't understand 1/10 of what it takes to do that, because there's a lot that goes into that. How do you take the idea of MENA Speakers from zero to where you are today? I mean, top brand in the Middle East.
It's been so much trial and error. I'll tell you, my first deal, it was involving actually Omar Al-Busaidi. He was a friend of mine then before we started working together. And I had resigned from my job at the bank. I'd set up this business of some sort, but I'd actually never been a speaker booker. I've never been a speaker agent. I'd only been a speaker. So no contracts, no bank accounts. I actually didn't really know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So the first deal, he says, oh, my friend is looking for a speaker, can I help them out? And I go, okay, great. So this is when I bring somebody else I know very well, and I matchmake and I do that thing. And I think we made like 500 dirhams off that deal without a contract, without anything. And I was like, that's not going to pay the bills if I do that once a month. Okay, great. Second deal came, and this is within the span of 2 weeks. So at that point, I started second guessing myself. Second deal was with the South African president, Thabo Mbeki. He flew into Dubai and he had this big engagement, and we helped him kind of set up a speaking gig for him. Mm-hmm. And it was so incredible to have that as the second engagement in the 2 weeks span of having resigned, set up a business.
Branding.
Oh, it was amazing. I felt like that was divine intervention. I felt like that was the sign that I needed to go, I'm on the right track. Let's keep going. But the next couple of years, and they did alternate between being really happy, really ecstatic, to some days just crying and just being like, what am I doing? This is so hard.
Yeah.
Welcome.
I always say, welcome to the world of being an entrepreneur.
It's emotional. It's real. It's not for the faint-hearted, and you have to. It tests all your skills, all of them, all the time. Are you good at sales? Are you good at marketing? Are you good at branding? Are you good at all of that? And if you're not, you're going to find out quite quickly where your area of growth are.
So you mentioned that the first time you got up and you blanked out. My situation was a little different, but I bombed also, and this was years ago. And I was in New York, and I was rising executive, and I was a part of this group. And every 6 weeks, somebody would present, and they said, "Ron, we need you to speak next time." And I could not sleep for 6 weeks because I was thinking, I can't get up in front of all my peers, 500 or 600 people, and I've got to do a 40-minute presentation. Yeah. And I said, I can back out easily, but then they'll know what the deal is. Or I can say, you know what, I got to conquer this. Yeah. And I worked from conquering it, put together a presentation, and I practice every morning. So I get up early, I go to the gym, and I say, next speaker is Ron Thomas. And I went through this for 6 weeks. And the morning of my presentation, when they called me up, I was commuting into New York that day, and I was terrified. This must be 10 years ago, and I'm terrified.
Yeah.
And when they called me on the stage, for some reason, a calmness came over, and I got up and I rocked it. People got up and gave me a standing ovation, and I said, check. Now I got to do this. Now I got to figure out a way to do this more. You know?
Nice. Do you still get nervous when you get up on stage? Do you have like nerves, or are you just super comfortable right now?
I'm always super comfortable, but I know when I'm coming up, so it's kind of like you're getting ready to get on the stage, and they're doing the intro and all those kind of things. So I just kind of stand there and I'm going to rock it. Yeah. So self-affirmation, and I said, I'm going to get up and do this. So we had a big conference here in Dubai the past 2 days, and I was co-host. And I knew I was going on at 2:00 from 2 till 6 or 7 or whatever it was. But I now I don't feel anything. I just know that I'm going up next, and you got to do your best to do that. So my question to you is that how do you? Because you'll see people say, "I want to be a speaker. I want to get up and do that." How do you, from your professional side, decide who would be an interesting prospect to present to your clients?
Yes, yes. So there are two elements of this. One is that in order to even qualify to any agency in the world, the bare minimum is three things. You have to have a good story, so what you're talking about aligns with your background. Second one is your speaking skills. Obviously has to be not just good, stellar, right? You have to be really charismatic on stage and good on stage. And number three is that you have enough marketing collateral and personal brand for us to present that to the client.
Wow. Okay.
So if we don't have, and quite often, and in the Middle East, we see 1 and 2. It's in number 3 where a lot of people fail. And in the number 3, that's what's going to determine whether you make $1,000 or $15,000. Because the stronger your brand, the more you can charge, of course, because you get the celebrity factor. Yes. And when it comes to the client, we do take an extensive consultative call with them to really understand what they're looking for. And from there, and we always give them at least 3 options to choose from within that scope that they provided us. And then ultimately they will decide. And we see, we're talking to them and we're reading what's happening in that situation. And our job is to ultimately find them that perfect voice for what they exactly are looking for. Because we know when one of our guys go up on stage with people, it's a sure shot. They're going to be best in class when they're on stage. And it's as simple as that.
Okay. Because you find so many people that want to do this. I mean, what we do. And they, from their vantage point, they feel that they are great at what they do. But you said the 1, 2, 3s, and then there's a shortcoming as it relates to that.
Definitely. And this is one of the reasons. So I spent a lot of my time rejecting people, which didn't feel good. It doesn't align with my value system, wanting to be included in community building. Realistically, you also need somebody who will service the client, and we want to do a good job for them. So what we ultimately decided to do is digitize our service offering. And we set up a marketplace that's called Experts Market, where everybody and anybody is welcome to register. And the market ultimately decides. If you're a competitive profile, somebody will find you and book you, because we have enough clients going through them doing that. And that could be either for free or up to a certain amount. But we said, let's do that. So you need to start learning what the market wants. So please go there and have that as a starting point for your career. And if you're not getting booked, then that's a signal that you need to upskill yourself, or your story narrative, or your personal brand. You need to become that.
Okay. That was one of my questions too, because I know that's a new business venture, Expert Markets. How did you switch from MENA Speakers to say, let me start this offshoot as it relates to experts? What was the driving force behind that?
Well, we wanted to accelerate first of all, what's been so nice about having this platform is because all of a sudden the team at that side were able to book a 6-year-old girl who could speak from Saudi, who could speak at a family event. And that's somebody that an agency or we wouldn't sign on that type of character, because it doesn't align. And then we've had a lot of these different individuals on stage that we would normally not work with, because again, they're not they're not commercial for an agency. So that's what really inspired the idea of, let's give these unsung heroes a chance to be heard. So that's one. And then come COVID, and it really accelerated that process, because we're in the space of digital. And if you look at internationally, there are markets like American or Northern European markets where you have thousands of speakers. In the Middle East, you don't have thousands of great speakers that are competitive, right? So we just really wanted to send the signal that you can do this as a career, but you need certain things in order to be eligible.
Okay. So if someone how could they contact MENA Speakers, or they contact the new entity? How would they
Yeah. So MENA Speakers at this stage is at capacity, and we're handpicking the very few
I
individuals
know.
that we're
Yeah, yeah.
because they need to be internationally competitive and great speakers.
Hmm.
So we're really directing most of the individuals trying to pitch us, etc., to go to experts market and let the market itself decide if you're interesting for them. So
Hmm.
it doesn't become an agency that's doing that work. And that's my quick and easiest advice to
Okay,
kickstart your
okay,
speaking.
okay. So the market dictates, whether I'm viable or not. So I sat through, for the past 2 days, I must have sat through 50 presentations.
Yeah.
And I just sit there and I score it. I said, nope, great. Here's a point here. Here's a point here. And two people got up and gave a presentation, and it was so awful. I went to them afterwards and I said, you know what? Here's what I'm going to offer. I will offer my services to you pro bono. I said, you got a good product, but you got to find a better way to pitch it. It was just that bad.
Yeah.
So I know that you are a speaker coach now, and I've seen you in action numerous times. And it's just, so tell us about the coaching aspect of a speaker's coach.
Yes. So, and I get what you just did, and that's exactly what happened. Where you're seeing somebody, you're like, oh, they're so good, or they could be really great. This is oh, there's potential here, and you kind of go, well, if they only just, because it's so easy. If
Yeah.
you only attend a few classes, and it's a skill, right, to be a great speaker. You can
Yeah.
learn the skill. So
Yeah.
just invest a bit in yourself, tweak some of the things that you're doing, and then you're going to have that potentially this really large effect. And that's kind of where my heart lies. So it's all about really helping others and in a scalable way convey messages that will impact others. And that's why every now and then I will go in and actually work with individuals to go, how can we supersize you so that your
Okay.
impact is not just heard here, it's heard internationally.
So COVID kind of put a stop of the speaker's business, put a halt to it.
Yeah, there was a
And
reset.
there was capital letters, 72 size font, reset.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
how and then it switched online.
yeah,
And then I've seen people online give presentations, and it's just, skills were great on a stage, but
yeah.
online it may be different. Can you walk us through the differences between those two?
Yeah, so not necessarily transferable 100%. And with COVID, at some point it felt like the Hunger Games. I felt like Katniss, like who's gonna survive, who's not, what's gonna happen next. So it was definitely that type of sentiment. And what was interesting is that with the reset, we basically saw everyone go back to zero. Those that we had as bestsellers were doing really great on stage were not necessarily great on camera. Those that weren't good on stage were doing a really great job on camera. So we had to kind of reevaluate that whole conversation. And then you had some that were very entrepreneurial who said, okay, this is a new situation. Let me get a new camera. Let me get an O-ring. Let me get lights, and set myself up professionally. So all of that made us kind of reevaluate who you would define as good and those that needed a little bit extra help on the way. But
I liked it when you said a little extra help on the way. Very diplomatically, you said that.
So with everything else, it's these are skills and strategies. And my fundamental belief is that I'm going to say most people can become great speakers. Most people actually can become great speakers with a little bit of training, a little bit of va-va-voom. We can reach a level of actually being good at communicating, because at the end of the day, we are a storytelling nation and tribe. And we all innately like to listen to stories and innately like to tell stories. But it's just structures and strategies.
Well, you say we can become that. So that's becoming a speaker, but that may not be of the realm of people are going to pay for you to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%. That's
Okay.
that's a business conversation. That's not just like good communication. It's also business and strategy and implementation. So that's like the next level on everything. Totally.
Yeah. So I have clients in Asia, insurance company, and their challenge was selling online because when the lockdown, they could not go and knock on doors to sell, say, life insurance. And they had to give the people skills for using a Zoom or Teams or whatever it was. And how do you do that online? The dynamic was that the average salesperson was of mid 40s to up, and they had struggled with the technology piece. They were great salespeople, but the technology piece. But meanwhile, the younger reps were able to sell and break all records, whereas the other folk who were a little older, sales dropped as a result of that. So you get opportunities from your side to go into organizations to train or develop people for the social aspect of speaking. Yes. Your screen is frozen. Okay, Ade, could we go to break and we come back? We're going to go to break for a minute and we'll come right back.
Identify and book the world's best speakers for your next event. MENA Speakers is the leading speakers and MC bureau in the Middle East. We bring global talent to the region and have established the region as a key global hub for speakers. Inspire and motivate your audience. Find exactly what you are looking for by working closely with us to assist you in understanding the cost-benefit analysis tied to selecting a speaker for any event. Ensure that your audience is educated, engaged, and empowered. Connect with us for a quick response and tailored advice. Book your speakers now.
Okay, so are we back yet? Screen is still frozen.
To the Future Innovation Summit.
Okay, we're back. Yay! I tell you, the trials and tribulations of being online, it's always something, but we were able to do that. And thank you, Ade, for being in the background and handling all of this kind of things, because trust me, if it were me, I would not know what to do. So I wanted to ask you, as a woman entrepreneur, what advice would you give for females? Or is it different than being a man in the spot that you're in?
There are always things to think about, and there's so much research around this, and sometimes you have to use hacks and establish boundaries and things like that. Generally speaking, I would say being in the Middle East has so much benefit if you're a female, and the position that I'm in, Arabic speaker and all of that, it's been very advantageous in so many ways, and the men have generally been helpful and excited and proud. of helping out and really kind of encouraging that. With that said, worldwide, we know the research. There's a lot of Machiavellian techniques. There are a lot of belittling techniques when you're sitting in meetings. Sometimes if I bring in a male agent, people think that I'm like that he's the person that they should be addressing. I think that's endearing. So that lots of these small things happen. And I think if you are well-versed and aware, no matter where you are in the world, you are going to be experiencing that type of stuff. And you have to be smart enough to be able to maneuver that. And sometimes it's about just letting it happen and letting it slide. Sometimes it's about saying, hold up, like, excuse me, you know?
Okay.
And that balancing act is it's interesting. It requires a lot of EQ, and sometimes it's mega frustrating, and sometimes it just is. You just have to roll with it.
Okay. Yeah, because you'll find so many young women want to get into business, and these macroaggressions, happen from time to time. Yeah. And so how do you deal with that? So that's cool. But so you're saying at a certain point you call it out, or you just address what needs to be addressed and kind of.
Yeah, my favorite though, my favorite is a bit cheeky. My favorite is always to send it. Is to do the same back.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So if like,
I've got that. Back to you.
Exactly. And mind you that communication is something that I'm trained in, and micro expressions is something I'm trained in, and all of these Machiavellian things is something I've had classical training in. So I'm very aware and informed about them. So from that side, I'm very grateful for knowing and understanding it. With that said, I quite enjoy sending back and doing exactly the same thing. Somebody pats you on the back, you pat them back.
Okay.
Just do. Okay. It's quite entertaining.
So from your economist background, does that play it into this entrepreneurial kind of arena that you're in now? Did you pull back on some of that master's level training in economics?
Yes, I haven't really engaged in that for quite some time because I've been very focused on communication and public speaking and doing what we're doing. That's been my area of focus. But believe it or not, they're quite linked. In some ways, if we're working with, say, a top CEO who wants to become more influential in the way that they lead and the way that they speak, it's advantageous to understand what's happening on the business side and on an economic side to be able to communicate in that way. But then combine that with speaking skills and good communication skills. That becomes a great combination for superb leadership.
So when you started MENA Speakers, you were still anchored in something else. When did you say, okay, the lifeline is cool, I'm going to let it go now because I'm on my own? Was there a differentiating point that you made that transition and say, I'm in MENA Speakers and no longer the award-winning economist?
Yeah, actually, the way I did it is not the way I would advise other people to do it. Because I did it quite cold turkey. I resigned from my job, left my partner at the time. Like it was just everything was reset.
All at once.
Yeah.
Change everything.
Yeah, that's not the way I would advise other people to do that, especially because I didn't really know that I was going to set up this business. There was an idea, but it was one out of 15 ideas. So when I resigned, I actually resigned because I didn't want to be the place where I was at that point in time. I knew it wasn't the right place, but I didn't know that was going to lead to MENA Speakers. But that decision came very quickly because the day you resign from your job, you're like, yay, freedom. The day after, you're like, what have I done?
I got flashbacks when you said that. I got flashbacks because I did the same thing. And I told someone, I said, walking from 42nd Street to the bus terminal to get the bus to go back home, I felt as if I had lost 100 pounds. Because it was like, all that weight is gone. And then the next week I'm thinking, okay, so what do I do? But in the US, you have this severance. So I had 6 months of severance to kind of figure something out. So I said, I got lead time. And then it was the 2008, 2009 financial calamity. and no one was hiring. But that
Oh,
led to something else, which was writing and all. But so a lot of times things happen, and when you get to that point, there's something that carries you to another point.
yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. And I think that a lot of that is your mindset and like an entrepreneurial spirit of making it all work in your favor. You know?
Yeah. Trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
What's next? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what was
Always.
next? What was next after you said, okay, I did a clean slate. I shed everything. How do I start over again? So so I started writing, and I found that writing allowed me to release. I could release thoughts, and I wrote an article, maybe the third article I wrote and had it published. It was picked up by the wire services.
Nice.
And someone interviewed me as a result of that. And then someone else called and asked me would I speak, and they would pay me. I said, you said what? And that kind of started it from there. And that was kind of a little uplift, but then it kind of nosedive again. And I was trying to figure it out.
Yes. That's a really common story for people joining in the speaking business. For my part, I knew one thing, and it was, if I don't work from a place based on my values, and I'd actually listed all my values, so I knew what they were. No matter what I will do next, it is going to align to my values. Maybe not 100%, but I'm happy with 70% and above. And I will work with that. So I just knew that much, and I didn't know what that would translate into. But it wasn't selling a product. It wasn't selling this or selling that. So I knew it was something else. But it moved quite quickly. It put me under a lot of pressure, and then stuff will happen quickly. And that's really what it was. It took days. And then I was like,
yeah,
this is what I'm doing.
It felt good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it felt good. It's funny that you're mentioning that, because I have clients that will call me from time to time, and I would say, just does not fit.
Yeah.
But if it's something about making people better, or the organization better for people, I'm all in. But if it's something about some KPI numbers and you got to hit, that's not. And I'll tell them, I say, you know what, that's cool. Sounds like a cool project, but at this point in time, it's just not for me. And it's nice to be able to say, although you would like to have the revenue coming in from that, but it's nice to be able to say that I'm not going to do a good job on it because I'm not really into it. And this is what I'm saying in a roundabout way.
But I don't think that's ever a bad thing, because what happens is, first of all, you're setting yourself up for success. So if you were biting the bullet and you're taking on a job or a task that you're not super happy with, it's going to somehow translate to mediocre results in the end, or some frustration in the end. That's how I see it. So you're better off saying, this is not for me. And the client knows that when I talk to Ron or whoever, they're always honest. I'm always getting a straight up direct answer. And that creates psychological safety. And in a service industry, you want to provide as much psychological safety to your client as possible. And so that's what makes them come back. And people come back and work with you all the time. I mean, we both know that. And that's probably because, the way you speak is just candid, to the point, what you eat. And that's so wonderful. That's really nice to see.
That's why you're such a great coach, because that was a coaching moment for me. Yeah, it was a coaching moment for me, because I said, you know what? No. But the way that you phrase that is that I'm adding more value, because I'm saying I'm not going to do a great job, but if you want me to be serious about something else, that would work from there.
Yeah. And they know that. And they know when you say that, that's the truth, and that's comfortable to know.
Okay. So as we begin the process of closing out, can you give us 2-3 things for someone that wants to get into the speaking business? The outside looking in always looks great until you get there and you realize it may be a little different. What advice would you give someone that wants to become a speaker and wants to be paid for being a speaker? How do you make that transition?
Okay, so I'm going to repeat one thing, and I'm going to give you something that I think is really, I wish I had known this when I started my career.
Okay.
So two things are coming here. Yes. One is that you have to treat it as a new business. It's a new startup, and be as
Oh.
diligent and persistent and focused on handling your marketing, sales, accounting, operations, and all of that the way you would with any other product. And if it so happens that your CEO is not good, then you need to let go of your CEO and find somebody else. And so quite often that CEO is you, because you're both the speaker and the CEO.
Yeah.
So you need to have a very tough conversation with your CEO and be like, is that person doing a good job with the sales and marketing? If the answer is no, you find somebody else. This is one. So treat it as a good business. Number two, if I would restart my career as a speaker, and I know I'm very serious about it, and I want global outreach, then what I would do is I would actually sign on a regional exclusivity with all these different agencies around the world that regionally manage my business.
Okay.
An Asian, a Chinese, an American, a South American, a European, African, and here, and have like one really great agency that does that. But that's the next level. That's to scale up your business. To start your business, you need to do point number one. To scale up is to do what I just said. And this is how you create, poof, that type of ripple effect.
And you take it beyond just thinking about it here, and you take it out to the world.
Exactly.
But you still need the message to be able to do that, and tell that story.
Oh, yes. And you're not gonna start up a new business without investing in getting a great personal brand, narrative, story, website, marketing. Like all these things need to be. You are gonna have to pay money to make that happen. And even if that is a consultancy or a speaking business or an advisory business, that's just something that just has to happen if you're very serious about it.
So that comes back to investing in you as a startup. It's not going to be that you're going to do it on a dime and expect all this success.
No chance. I've never seen it happen that way. So
this is what I tell people, because I see people say, "Oh, I want to be an entrepreneur." I said, you're walking away from a job that you work 5 days a week and you get a salary, to taking an opportunity and trying to build it out for working 7 days a week and no guarantee of a salary. Are you willing to make that? Are you willing to make that deal?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because that's what it comes to. That's what it comes down to, basically, is to be able to do that, and I think lots of times we're looking from the outside in. It's like looking at a brand. Everything looks great until you get on the inside, and then it's totally different than what you have perceived, standing back to say, this is what I want to do next. So what's next for MENA Speakers? So we've gone from MENA Speakers, and then we've gone to the Experts Bureau. What's next?
Yeah. So we're definitely, we're scaling up the tech platform, fundraising for that to bring in some investors and really supersize the tech platform in itself. MENA Speakers is actually going to go and focus a bit more on a set group of elite speakers and really focus on working with them. And that's very much a human-to-human type of business. And we're going to really dive into that. The platform is going to go wide. Across countries and work more on scaling up like that. So that's the game plan for now in the next couple of months. And it's definitely 7 days a week, 24/7. Like it's just around the clock.
Yeah, with no guarantee, but you're doing it because I love doing what I do. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know exactly. So, thank you. I can't thank you enough. I know you're busy, and I reached out to you before. You said you'd be more than glad to come in and share your knowledge with the audience. So thank you so much for being a part of the show. And just hang on for a minute as we begin to close out.
Thank you for having me.